Good morning. My name is Princess London, an analyst at the FIA. I am honored to present to you Dion Marie, who is also an analyst who will be presenting on terrorist financing typologies. The topics that will be covered include defining TF typologies, recognizing the relevance of typologies, understanding the mechanism of TF typologies, awareness in global TF methods and trends, the relevance of TF typologies, identifying potential effects of TF risks to the BVI, and the BVI's legislative framework against terrorist financing. If you have any questions, I encourage you to send an email to reportingauthority@fiabvi.vg. I now hand over to Dion Marie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I do hope that all is well. My name is Diane Marie Campbell, and as Princess stated, I'm an analyst with the Financial Investigation Agency, and I will be your presenter for today. So today I will be presenting on the topic terrorist financing typologies. So the objective of this presentation is to highlight what are TF typologies and to basically enhance your knowledge and awareness as to the current global TF typologies and how they are relevant to the British Virgin Islands. So terrorist financing involves collecting, moving, and using funds to support terrorist activities. Unlike money laundering, which primarily deals with disguising illegally obtained money, terrorist financing may involve legally earned funds. This makes it more challenging to detect because legitimate financial channels can be used. So due to the complexities of terrorist financing, jurisdiction with strong financial industries such as the British Virgin Islands must ensure that they are not exploited by illicit networks such as terrorist organizations using the territory to achieve their objectives. So before we dive deeper into this presentation, I would like to set the foundation so you can have a better understanding regarding the different topics that we are about to explore. So some of you may have an idea as to what is a typology, and some of you may not know. So let's just level the playing field for those of you who do not know. Typology is a systematic classification based on common characteristics or patterns. And what do I mean by systematics? It's a classification basically to help in organization complex information into understandable categories. So typologies are used in various fields such as criminology, finance, and risk management. So in the context of terrorist financing, typologies help to identify the different method, techniques, and trends used to raise, move, and use funds for terrorist activities. So in a nutshell, typologies are crucial in our fight against financial crime. And you may ask, simply because it helps us to detect and prevent illicit funds, I should say financial flows. So the importance of typology. Okay, so do permit me to further elaborate on the importance of typologies in terms of terrorist financing. In regards to typologies, they do help us to detect and prevent illicit flow of funds. And I just wanted to go a little bit further so you can have a better understanding as to the purpose of this webinar and have a greater appreciation for the information provided. So typologies are regarded as important because they help financial institutions identify suspicious transactions. So the typology provides a structured insight into how terrorist organizations move funds, help financial institutions recognize red flags without typologies. So financial institutions would struggle to distinguish legitimate transaction from those linked to terrorism by understanding common methods such as cash carriers, front companies, and abuse charities. Banks can better apply risk-based transaction monitoring. Secondly, it helps law enforcement agency like the FIA in detecting and preventing terrorist activities. So law enforcement relies on typologies to connect financial activities with criminal behaviors. Typologies help investigators to identify and analyze financial flows and enable them to trace money movements back to terrorist networks. When the financial intelligence unit, receives suspicious transaction report, which we all know as STR, typologies help to determine whether the activity is related to fraud, money laundering, or terrorist financing. So third, it also enable policymakers. Yes, it's a lot. Yes. So it also enable policymakers to develop targeted regulation and compliance measures. So before policymakers initiate or implement any regulation, they need evidence-based data as to create effective regulations that combat terrorist financing. So they need to have a knowledge of as to the characteristics of terrorist financing. Therefore, by understanding the typologies that are associated with terrorist financing, the government will be able to prioritize high-risk sectors and apply the necessary regulations. Fourth, improve global collaboration and intelligence sharing. So we have to understand that terrorist financing often evolves across cross-border transaction, which requires international corporations. Countries and institutions that share typologies can harmonize their counter-terrorism efforts, which make it harder for terrorist groups to exploit regulatory loopholes. So going further into this presentation, you will hear me talk about trends, methodology, techniques. In an effort to not cause any confusion, I would like to take the opportunity to differentiate the three. So the key difference are that a trend is generally a movement or direction that is currently popular within a specific field. So trends are dynamic and they evolved over time, often influenced by external factors such as technological advancement, regulatory changes, market condition, or societal preference. Whereas methodology refers to a structure, process, or system designed to achieve a goal. It provides a framework or a set of principles that guide how tasks should be performed. Unlike trends, methodology are usually more suitable and do not change frequently unless they become absolute. As for techniques, techniques refers to a specific skills, tool, or approach used to execute or get a task done effectively. It is the most it is considered a level of execution and can be part of multiple methodology or influenced by trends. So how are they related? Trends influence methodology and techniques. When new trends emerge, it can drive change into a preferred methodology and techniques. Methodology incorporates multiple techniques. A single methodology often uses several techniques to achieve its objective. As for techniques, it can be adopted to fit trends and methodology. Techniques are flexible and can be modified to align with emerging trends or be integrated into different methodology. So let's get into it. So current or global trend in terrorist financing. So as the world evolves, so do the trends in terrorist financing. Terrorist organization continuously adapt to changing financial landscapes. They tend to leverage emerging technologies, exploit regulatory gaps, and find new ways to evade detection. The rise of digital finance, decentralized transaction, and globalized economies has introduced both opportunities and challenges in fight against illicit financial flows. So understanding these evolving trends is crucial for government, financial institution, and law enforcement agencies to stay ahead of the emerging threats. So of the most significant trend in terrorist financing includes increased use of cryptocurrency and virtual assets, which terrorists are turning into digital currency for because of it basically has no trace, is anonymous, and it enables cross-border transaction. So due to the convenience of illicit transaction, this makes it attractive to terrorists. So the terrorist group usually gravitate to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Monero, and Tether for fundraising and transferring money across border with minimal oversights. So exploitation of global financial system. So the terrorist group tend to take advantage of weak regulatory framework, especially in countries with lack anti-money laundering measures. They use traditional banking channels, shell companies, and offshore accounts to launder and move funds. Third, exploitation of crowdfunding and social media platform. Online platforms are being misused to raise funds under false humanitarian or ideological pretense. So social media basically help them to spread propaganda and solicit micro donation, which often under the disguise of humanitarian causes, as previously mentioned. Use of charities and non-profit organizations. So terrorist groups often exploit charities to funnel funds under pretense of aid. So some legitimate charities may unknowingly divert funds to extremist group due to lack of due diligence. As a result of this, the FATF has updated its best practice to reflect amendments to the recommendation 8. And it is basically to help countries, the non-profit sectors and financial institutions understand how to best protect relevant NPOs from abuse from terrorist financing without unduly disruption or discouraging their legitimate NPO activities. Trade-based money laundering is a technique where terrorists manipulate trade transactions to move illicit funds across borders. So therefore, this trend include methods such as over invoicing, under invoicing, and misrepresentation of goods and service to disguise funds transfer. So throughout this webinar, you will hear me make reference to some characteristics of money laundering, and you may wonder how are the two connected. So to ensure that we have a clear understanding throughout this webinar, I just wanted to inform you that while terrorist financing and money laundering are distinct crimes with different objectives, they often intersync, and many techniques used for money laundering are also relevant in terrorist financing context. So to understand how ML related methods are relevant to in TF typologies, in this TF typology webinar, it's that it has an overlapping technique. So many financial mechanisms used in money laundering, such as trade-based laundering, offshore account, and structuring transaction, are also used by terrorists to move and disguise their funds. So criminal organization and terrorists both seeks to obscure the source, destination, and purpose of their money, making money laundering techniques highly relevant to TF discussion. So look at it this way: purpose versus process. Money laundering is focused on disguising the origin of illicit funds, for example, from drug trafficking, corruption, fraud, whereas terrorist financing is about raising, moving, and using funds to support terrorist activities, whether the money is from legal or illegal sources. So just needed to get that out of the way so we can move forward. Okay, so terrorist organization usually employs various financial techniques to fund their operation, often exploiting vulnerabilities in financial system worldwide. So these methods enable them to move funds discreetly, evading detection and sustain their activities. So understanding these techniques is crucial for law enforcement agencies, financial institution, policymakers to effectively countermeasure terrorist financing. So some of the techniques often used by a terrorist group were and which were identified by the Financial Investigation Agency was abuse of non-profit organization, trade-based money laundering, complex corporate structures and offshore accounts, Hawala network, virtual assets and cryptocurrency, crowdfunding, cash smuggling, and structuring. So just to elaborate a little bit more on these, we're going to look at them individually. So abuse of non-profit organization. So terrorist group exploit non-profit organization to disguise financial activities, raise and transfer funds and support their operation under the pretense of humanitarian. So you will keep on hearing me talking about humanitarian aid because this is associated with non-profit organization or charities. So the lack of strict financial oversight in some MPOs makes them attractive or targeted for abuse. So the most common technique terrorists use to manipulate MPO is to create a fake or front charity. So how this work, you may wonder. So terrorists establish fake charities that claim to provide humanitarian aid, disaster relief, or social service. These NPOs solicit donation from well-meaning individuals, corporation, or government. Instead of the funds for legitimate aid, they are redirected to terrorist activities. So in this In this instant, some of the indicators to look at concerning the misuse of NPOs will be NPOs with vague mission, no clear track record, or unvariable impact. For example, an NPO claims to have built a school or provide disaster relief, but there are no receipt, reports, or verifiable records to support the claims. Also, you have high volume of cash transaction with minimal financial transparency. And all of a sudden, large donation from an anonymous or high risk jurisdiction. Okay, so trade-based money laundering. Trade-based money laundering, also known as TBML. This is a sophisticated method used by criminals and terrorist organizations to move illicit funds across borders under the disguise of legitimate trade. So this method exploits international trade system and weak regulatory oversight in some jurisdiction. So the way in which this work is that the terrorist group, they tend to over or under invoice goods. So goods are invoiced at a price significant. It could be significantly higher or lower than the market value to transfer value illicitly. So, and also they have multi-invoicing. So this is where the same goods or service are invoiced multiple times to justify repeated payment. You also have misrepresentation of goods, false description of goods or service are used to avoid detection. Example, low value goods declared as a high valued goods. And then you also have phantom shipping. This means fake transactions are created with no actual movements of goods. Indicators in regards to TBML are large-scale trade transaction between entities that do not align with their business profile, significant trade activities in jurisdiction with weak anti-money laundering regulations, inconsistencies in shipping documents, invoice, and financial transaction. Payment may be made in ways that do not align with normal trade practice. So why is this so important to terrorist organization? Really and truly, because it allows the movement of large amount of money while disguising the true purpose of the transaction. It exploits gaps in international trade regulation, making detection difficult. It enables terrorists to avoid traditional banking system, which are subjected to stricter compliance measure. So front companies. Front companies are usually legitimate looking business that terrorist organization establish or infiltrate to disguise illicit financial transaction or generated funds or move funds while avoiding detection. So these companies may operate in various industry, often blend in, they look normal in the economic activities, making it difficult for authorities to trace their link to terrorism. So how front companies work in terrorist financing? Terrorists use front companies in several ways, including generating revenues, as mentioned before, but I'm just going to go in details as to break them down as to how they really work, so you could have a better understanding. So generating revenue for terrorist activities. So some front companies operate as real business. Example, restaurant, construction firms, import or export businesses, charities, and NPOs. But profits are secretly funneled to fund terrorist activities. So you can see here, based on the type of business I have listed, you would have realized that the techniques intertwine at some point or another. So laundering illicit funds. The terrorists use a front company to integrate illegally obtained money into formal economy, such as depositing the money into financial institution or business investment, just to disguise its origin. Front companies are used to facilitate international funds transfer. So they're able to do this by engaging into overseas trade and investment, which allow terrorists to move money across borders under the pretense of business transaction. They're also exploited because of weak financial control. So this basically means these companies, they can take advantage of poorly regulated sectors, offshore financial centers, and gaps in corporate transparency to avoid detection. Indicators for front companies. So usually financial transaction involves large cash deposits or withdrawal inconsistent with normal business activities, payment to known high risk or conflict zone, the opaque ownership and control, which mean complex corporate structure with unknown or unverifiable ownership, frequent changes in companies' directors or legal status. Hawala. So Hawala and informal value transfer system. In terrorist financing, they're basically an alternative financial network that operate outside of formal banking system. So these are often used for legitimate remnants in communities with limited banking access, but also exploited by terrorists and criminal organizations to move funds discreetly across borders. So Awala in particular is a trust-based system where money is transferred through a network of brokers without the actual movements of cash. So this is basically how Awala and other informal valuable transfer system works. So it has no physical movements of money. The funds are transferred based on a network of trust between brokers, making it difficult to trace transaction. It is also deals with it is also anonymous, and so as a result of that, it lacks record. So transaction relies on personal relationship rather than formal documentation, which by doing this, they're able to bypass financial oversights. And cross-border funds transfer, terrorists are able to use Awala to transfer funds international while avoiding banking regulation and sanctions. Conversion of cash to value. So terrorist financiers convert illicit funds into another form of value, whereas it can be gold, it can be goods, it can be real estate before moving them through IBTS. So just to go a little bit deeper so you could have an understanding of Awala. So for instance, you have a sender, which is the terrorist financer, So he would then give money to the awalader, that's what they call themselves, in one country, and the awalader contacts another broker in the destination country. That's the country in which the terrorist financer want to get some money to that destination. So this awala system helps to the terrorists by providing transaction details, and the receipt the terrorist operative they would collect. So you would have, based on what you're seeing on the slide, the terrorist financer would have a conversation with the sender in regards to how much money he wants to get to country B, and he would find out if he has any links in country B, and he will give him the amount of money that he wants the person in country B to get. So what will happen, in most cases, the awalader in country A, you would probably have like a dealership, some kind of business that he can afford to have money and move across certain things. And the other person in country B would also have a business with that money. So he would contact the person on a trust base and let the person know that, hey, I have somebody in the BVI, and the person I'm just using the BVI as an example. So he will contact somebody in Dominica. Let's say the terrorist financer want to get money to Dominica Republic. So he will contact his links in Dominica and let them know, hey, I have a client here and he wants to get like $10,000 to somebody in Dominica, but he does not want to use the financial system. He does not want to use the money remittance. Can you give this individual, the person who he wants to give the money, $10,000, and I'll get it back to you? So just like that, the person in Dominica gives the individual, the terrorist financer, whether it is counterparts, the money so they can go ahead and do what they have to do. So I hope that cleared up as to how Awala works. And also, you have to remember that you have to replenish the person who you have the agreement with. You have to replenish their money at some point, because you can't keep on calling the other country and asking them, or should I say in this case, calling country B and asking country B to give money. At some point, the awalader or the dealer in country A, he would have to replenish the money that is in country B. So what they will do, at some point, it is he will probably get somebody to smuggle the money back to country B, or using his business contact, he will try to transfer the money back to the person in country B. So that's just a little insight as to how Awala works. So why terrorists use it? Because it's anonymous. There's no formal identification or banking records required. And there's a lack of paper trail. As I stated, the terrorist financer can go to the dealer in country A, just have a conversation saying that he wants to get the money to country B, give the person in country A the $10,000, the dealer call the person in country B, made the links, and the receiver would be able to get the money on that end without moving the money from the country. So it basically helps to it's speedy and it's efficient, and it's also avoid any sanctions or regulations. So the terrorist groups are able to operate in areas where formal financial services are restricted. So virtual assets and cryptocurrency in terrorist financing. Virtual assets include cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero. These are all digital forms of values that can be transferred, stored, or even exchanged electronically. So unlike traditional financial system, many cryptocurrency operate on a decentralized network with varying levels of privacy, and they're also anonymous. So while virtual assets have legitimate uses, well, the terrorists, they just had to turn it into something to benefit them. So the terrorist organization basically exploit them for fundraising, transfers, and storage of fund while avoiding detection. So the whole purpose of them is to just avoid detection by financial regulators. So this work, this is functional for terrorist financing because in fundraising and donation, terrorists solicit cryptocurrency donation through social media, extremist website, and the dark web forum. So you have anonymous transfer, cryptocurrency enable peer-to-peer, or you may know it as P2P transaction with limited oversight, making it harder for authorities to track the funds. You also have, they also use a privacy coin and mixer. So the way in which this work, privacy focus on cryptocurrency like Monero, Dash, and Zcash, obscure transaction details while mixing and tumbling service further to hide the funds origin. And then after you have the storage and investment. So terrorist group convert traditional funds into cryptocurrency asset as a hedge against financial sanction. And in regards to the dark web and illicit purchases, terrorists use cryptocurrency to purchase weapon, fake documents, and hacking tool via the dark web market. So cryptocurrency, crowdfunding, and social media. So extremist group, they usually launch fundraising campaign in Bitcoin and other digital assets, urging supporters to donate. They can also use like QR codes and wallet address. They usually share them through encrypted message apps, forum, or social media. So in addition to this, they use decentralized finance, whereas the terrorists are able to exploit smart contract, decentralized exchanges, and blockchain lending platform to move and convert funds. So this is they're able, sorry, to do this because it's unregulated. Cryptocurrency exchange and peer-to-peer transaction, funds move through unregistered or lightly registered crypto exchange, making detection difficult. Some terrorist network experiment with non-fungible tokens and tokenized assets to obscure financial transactions. So key indicator, frequent small cryptocurrency transfer, donation known to extremist wallet, use of privacy coin and mixture, activity on high risk exchange. This is where they use offshore or unregulated or darknet based cryptocurrency exchange. Crowdfunding and terrorist financing. So crowdfunding is a process of raising money from a large number of individuals, typically through online platform to fund projects, costs, or business. While most crowdfunding is legitimate, terrorist organization, they tend to exploit crowdfunding platform to raise funds under false pretense. So in regards to false pretense, they have false humanitarian campaigns. So terrorists create fake charities or aid campaign on crowdfunding site to collect donation. They also use social media and encrypted messages app. This also include extremist group using telegrams, WhatsApp, as I mentioned before, because crowdfunding was also included in cryptocurrency. So the use of cryptocurrency and anonymous payment method, in crowdfunding, funds are often collected in Bitcoins, Monero, prepaid debit cards, just to avoid detection. Sometimes they have fake business and investment campaigns. This is where some terrorist group create fraudulent business startup or claim to be raising funds for new venture. So as you go on, you will realize that the different typologies, they tend to intertwine or overlaps with each other. And the key in some of the common platform used for terrorist crowdfunding is, you might hear of this GoFundMe, Kickstarter, and they have the social media fundraiser, which include Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram. They use these platforms to solicit funds from sympathizers. So if you're feeling sorry because you're saying that these children don't have food or what's not, and you want to send some money for them, you have to be careful what you're doing, because sometimes it's just a front to get your money to contribute to terrorist financing. So some of the indicators, you would have unclear or vague campaign description, lack of detailed information about how the funds will be used. You have frequent small donation from various countries. You have use of anonymous payment methods and connection with extremist group. So cash smuggling and structuring transaction in terrorist financing. So cash smuggling is the physical transportation of large amount of cash across borders or between location to finance terrorist activities. So while avoiding detection by financial institution and law enforcement, since cash transaction in some cases leave no digital trace, terrorists use this method discreetly to move funds. So how cash smuggling works in terrorist financing? So you have bulk of cash movements. This is where large sum of undeclared cash are carried across borders in suitcase, vehicles, or cargo ships. So they also use cash carriers, or also known as mules. Individuals, they are often unaware of the true purpose of the money that they're transporting, and it's transported in small amounts as to avoid suspicion. Sorry. You also have concealing cash in goods or vehicles. So they're able to hide the cash in compartments in vehicles, merchandise, shipping, or inside legal trade goods. And then you also have cash to goods to cash scheme. So this is where terrorists is able to convert cash into valuable assets like gold, diamond, or luxury goods, which are then resold for funds in another location. So structuring in this aspect, it is basically used to evade financial reporting requirements. So by breaking down large transaction into small amounts, they're able to remain below the regulatory reporting threshold. So this allows financial terrorist financiers to move through formal financial system without raising red flags. So how it works? It's basically breaking large transaction into smaller deposits. So instead of depositing $50,000 at once, the terrorists will make 5 separate transactions of 9,900 deposit, and this is just to avoid the threshold. So some of the indicators, you have frequent small deposits and withdrawal just below the reporting threshold, like 9,099. Or you would have use of multiple accounts or individual. This is considered smurfing, really, where you have money moving across different bank accounts to obscure origin. Unexplained cash. Yes, sorry. You have You have unexplained cash possession at border crossing, individual carrying large amount of undeclared cash. So in regards to methodology used by terrorists in financing their activities, so terrorist organizations are known for employing sophisticated financial methodologies to fund their operation while avoiding detection. So their financing process involves raising, as I stated before, raising, moving, storing, and utilizing funds through various strategies that exploit financial, regulatory, and jurisdiction loopholes. So as you can see, their method include fundraising, funds movement strategy, risk mitigation, geographical and jurisdictional exploitation, utilization of fund. I will further address these in this coming slides. So fundraising strategy, as we would have already established, terrorists generate funds through both legal and illegal means. So as to ensure a continuous flow of financial resources for recruitment, logistics, and attacks, they are able to generate funds through the, as we mentioned before, the abuse of charities and nonprofit organizations. So they're able to, terrorists are able to establish or infiltrate legitimate charities to solicit donation under the disguise of humanitarian. And they also use crowdfunding, which is the online fundraising platform, and encrypted message app. They also form business front, and investment schemes. This is where legitimate looking business, construction, trade serve as front companies to generate and launder money. You also have illegal activities. This involves drug trafficking, human smuggling, arms trading, kidnapping for ransom, and extortion. So funds movement strategy. So once the funds, once they have raised the funds must be transferred and stored securely. So while avoiding financial surveillance, terrorists use both formal and informal channels to move money across borders. As we stated before, you have the awala and the informal value transfer system. You have trade-based money laundering, and you also have cryptocurrency and digital assets, smuggling cash and high value goods, and structuring and smurfing. So in regards to Awala and informal value transfer system, as stated, they need to have a trust-based money transfer system that avoid banking scrutiny. Trade-based money laundering, over or under invoicing of goods and false trade transaction are employ, sorry, to transfer value. In regards to cryptocurrency, they use Bitcoin, privacy coin, example Monero, or decentralized finance platform to allow anonymous transaction. As it regards to smuggling cash, the cash is physically moving. They physically move the cash in bulks or in gold or diamonds across border, which in most cases it's undetected. In regards to structuring, they're able to break down large transaction into smaller amounts across accounts to evade financial reporting threshold. So risk mitigation. So while they're doing everything they have to do, they have to ensure that they're not caught. So risk mitigation in terms of the terrorists trying to avoid detection and financial disruption. So terrorist group employed several they tend to employ several risk management techniques. This is in respect to diversification of funds or the funding sources. So they use multiple fundraising channels to reduce reliance on single stream. They use intermediary or third party. So the terrorists use carriers, fake business partner, and also unwitting financial supporters to distance themselves from transaction. So use of regulated financial service. They prefer cryptocurrency exchange, prepaid card, and mobile money service with weak AML compliance. So in terms of geographical and jurisdictional exploitation, terrorist financiers exploit regions with weak financial regulations, corrupt institution, or political instability to move and store funds. So they would have like a conflicted zone or a failed state, whereas they're operating in area with weak law enforcement. Example, you have Somalia, you have Syria, and you have Afghanistan. And also they would like to operate in areas where you have tax haven and offshore jurisdiction. So in these areas, they use low regulation banking centers to hide assets and financial transactions. So after you get the money, you would need to utilize it or put it to use. So utilization of funds. So once the funds are secured, terrorists allocate financial resources towards various operational and strategic objectives. So they put this towards like recruitment and training. So the financing indoctrination, and they also use it for propaganda and military training camps. Um, Also for weapon and equipment, they are able to purchase arms, explosive vehicles, tactical gears, also for logistics and safe house. So supporting travels, accommodation, and operational expenses for members. They also use it for bribery and corruption, which mean paying off government officials, security force, or border guards to facilitate movements and protection. So this is also used to sustain network. This means providing financial support for families. These are families these are families who they would have had someone detained for them who is involved in terrorism, detained or deceased, and they're basically trying to help those family members who are left behind to maintain as to show the family that they're maintaining loyalty and long-term commitment. So global typologies that are considered relevant to the risk and context of the BVI. So the British Virgin Islands, as you know, it is a prominent financial center known for company formation, trust services, and investment structures. So while these services benefit legitimate businesses, they can also be misused for illicit financial activities, such as money laundering, frauds, and terrorist financing. So let's get an in-depth explanation as to the key financial crime typologies that pose risk to the BVI. So I will provide further reasoning in regards to the points that are currently listed on the slide in the comment slide. So the first one, use of complex corporate structure. So this is where illicit actors, and when you hear me saying or using the term illicit actors, I'm basically referring to the criminals or the terrorists in this aspect. So yes, these illicit actors can use multiple layers of companies, trusts, and nominees to hide the true ownership of assets. So having employed such a complex mechanism, it makes it difficult for law enforcement to trace the flow of money or to determine the ultimate owner of the illicit funds. So why is it relevant to the BVI? The BVI is considered as one of the leading jurisdiction for company incorporation, as stated before. So the BVI offer confidentiality, and this means that terrorist organization can set up a complex corporate structure in the BVI to hold and transfer illicit funds while masking their identity. So in response to this risk associated with money laundering, terrorist financing, and illicit financial activities, the British Virgin Islands has established the beneficial ownership secure search, which is known as BOSS system, as to this initiative was aimed to enhance corporate transparency, improving due diligence, and to prevent misuse of offshore financial structure by criminals and terrorist organization. So trade-based money laundering and its relevance to the BVI. So as established earlier, in this presentation, trade-based money laundering is a financial crime method in which trade transactions are manipulated to disguise, move, and integrate illicit funds into a legitimate economy. So criminals exploit the complexities of international trade to launder money while avoiding detection by financial institutions and regulatory authorities. So why this is relevant to the BVI? It's because the British Virgin Islands is not a major good trading hub. Its status as a well-known financial center make it I would say an attractive jurisdiction for terrorists to set up complex corporate structure and manipulate trade transactions. So this can be done through the fact that it is possible for terrorists to use BVI companies to launder money across borders. So offshore entities in the BVI can act as an intermediary for illicit trade transaction, allowing criminals to move funds unnoticed. So this is the reason for this is because the lack of physical trade activity makes detection harder. So since the BVI companies often conduct trade without physical operation in the territory, financial institution may not easily detect suspicious activities. And also you have the use of complex corporate structure in TBML schemes. So the BVI companies and trusts can be used as part of a layering transaction as to obscure the source and the destination of illicit funds. And here we're going to look at abuse of nonprofit organization and charities again. So some terrorist groups and criminal network often exploit charities and nonprofit organizations to move funds discreetly. So this is done under the disguise of humanitarian causes as to cover for illicit financial transfer. So this abuse can happen in various ways, including setting up fake charities as front. So the criminal are able to, or the terrorists, they're able to create fraudulent NPOs to collect donation and transfer fund under legitimate pretense. They are also able to divert legitimate donation, which is funds that are intended for charitable cause, are secretly funneled towards terrorist operations. So they basically use the MPOs to transfer funds across jurisdictions. So terrorists are able to leverage charities to send money under the disguise of humanitarian aid, making it harder to detect illicit activities. And why this is relevant to the BVI really is because the BVI hosts many international operating NPOs, making it um, susceptible to financial crime risk. So if there's any weak oversight on charities, this could allow illicit actors to move terrorist funds disguised as donation. And given the BVI status as a global financial center, the BVI must ensure that MPOs are complying with the AML/CFT regulation to prevent misuse. So in regards to digital and cryptocurrency, so cryptocurrencies are decentralized digital assets. They offer speed, they're anonymous, which means they're secret. The persons cannot detect who the individual behind whatever transaction. They have global reach, making them more appealable for both legitimate and financial transactions and illicit activities. So terrorists and criminals can exploit cryptocurrency by using unregulated or offshore cryptocurrency exchanges to transfer funds undetected, engage in peer-to-peer, as some people might know it, P2P transaction without identifying or without identification or verification of their identity really. So they also use mixing, which is tumbling service to obscure the origin and the destination of transaction. And this is relevant to the BVI because the BVI is home to several cryptocurrency business, which increases its exposure to crypto related financial crime. So if crypto exchanges and digital assets firm in the BVI are not properly regulated, they could become a conduit for terrorist financing. Cash-based transaction. So cash transaction in some cases are difficult to trace. When you're considering the mechanism of hawala, currency exchange, and cash smuggling, make it one of the most preferred method for terrorists to move funds while avoiding financial surveillance. So since cash can be easily exchanged, stored, and transported, terrorist organization and money launderers exploit cash-intensive business, smuggling networks, and structuring techniques to move money while avoiding financial scrutiny. So this is relevant to the BVI. Although the BVI is primarily a financial service-based economy, it is still exposed to cash-based financial crime due to offshore banking accounts of companies. So terrorists can deposit large amount of cash into a BVI registered company's account and then move it through international transactions. So since the BVI companies operate globally, cash-based transactions do not necessarily occur within the BVI banks, making it harder for local regulators to detect. And this is in regards to companies, corporate companies, or offshore companies. So investment in real estate and business. Terrorist finances, they usually use real estate and business investments to integrate illicit funds into legitimate economy. So the asset they procure serve as a stable way to store value, generate income, and disguise the origin of illicit funds. So one of the common method used by terrorist financiers is that they're able to buy property with illicit funds. And the real estate purchase is converted based on the purchase that they would have made. They're able to convert dirty money into clean money as the asset appear legitimate. You have overvaluing real estate purchases. So properties may be deliberately overpriced to justify large funds movement. And you also have anonymous offshore property ownership. So this is where you have tourist financiers use a corporate structure or a trust to buy properties while concealing their identities. Investing in business to move illicit funds. So you have a legitimate looking business acting as a front for a launderer, or even a renting or flipping property. Renting or flipping properties to fund operations. So profit from the real estate transaction, they are used to finance terrorist activities. And this is relevant to the BVI because the BVI has a thriving real estate market, which can be used to store, launder illicit funds. So offshore entities registered in the BVI can buy properties worldwide, making it difficult for authorities to trace financial flows. And because it's anonymous, company owners structure in the BVI can allow terrorists to hide their involvement in real estate. So legal, so the misuse of professional services. Legal professionals, including lawyers, notaries, and corporate service providers, they play a crucial role in finance, in the financial transaction. So company formation and trust management. Yeah. So professionals. This include lawyers, notaries, and corporate service providers. They play a crucial role because in financial transaction and company formation and trust management. However, terrorist financiers and criminal exploit legal services as to disguise the movement of illicit funds, laundering money, and evading regulatory oversights. So the terrorists, they're able to misuse legal professional service by setting up shell companies and trusts, and the lawyer helped them to create a corporate entity that hides the true ownership of funds, facilitating complex legal structures. So terrorists have multiple offshore companies, trusts, and nominees, directors obscuring the origin and control of assets. Legal practitioner, they're able to assist in property and business acquisition, sorry. So legal professional, they're able to handle real estate transaction and business deal that integrate illicit funds. So in regards to them managing clients' funds through the law firm account, some trust account or client, they usually play a role of escrow service, and this may be misused to layer financial transaction. Also providing legal advice on regulatory loopholes. So lawyers may unknowingly guide clients into avoiding AML, anti-money laundering measures. So this is relevant to the BVI because the BVI is a major offshore financial center with a large network of legal professionals and corporate service providers. they're involving company formation, trust administration, and financial services. So lawyers and corporate service providers play a key role in setting up offshore entities, which may be used by criminals to move funds anonymously. And if proper due diligence is not conducted, professionals may unknowingly facilitate money laundering and terrorist financing activities. So so if there's a weak oversight of legal professionals, this may increase the risk of misuse by illicit actors, and it can also cause damage to the British Virgin Islands reputation as a secure financial jurisdiction. So before going into the typologies, identify from virtual assets report, um, I will be talking about I would be talking on the basis of what we would have seen in regards to suspicious activity report concerning virtual assets, in regards to cryptocurrency really. And you would have noted that there wasn't any concerning companies or any other entity or individual. And that's because for the year 2024, we did not come across any SARS that would have had association with any individual using or misusing any of the BVI corporate structures. So in regards to typologies identified for virtual assets report, the Financial Investigation Agency, after analyzing suspicious activity reports submitted by virtual asset service providers in the territory, we would have identified several typologies used in terrorist financing through virtual assets. So these typologies provide insight into how illicit actors use cryptocurrency and digital transaction to move and obscure funds. So using donation address for terrorist financing. Terrorist groups and their supporters. So they publicly share cryptocurrency wallet address to collect donation for their operation. These addresses are often linked to fundraising campaigns disguised as charities or humanitarian efforts. So the donors send funds in small structured transaction to avoid detection. Use of Telegram to receive donations. So extremist group, and these are groups that they're in support of terrorism. They leverage Telegram's channels and encrypted message app to collect and distribute virtual asset donations. So donators are provided with crypto wallets or QR codes to send funds directly. So some channels they also offer like step-by-step guide on how to buy and send cryptocurrency anonymously. Also the use of Bitcoin and Tether. So Bitcoin remains widely used in terrorist financing due to its global acceptance. And Tether has become the most dominant stablecoin used in illicit transaction due to its price stability and availability on multiple blockchain. So terrorist financiers convert BTC, which is the Bitcoin, to USD, which is the Tether, to minimize any detection before transferring funds. Transaction of both large and small sums. So we would have seen that you have large transactions that were often used to move bulk of funds quickly. So, and then you also have small transaction where you have structuring, they involve structuring. So they use in order to avoid detection. So they were able to like transfer small amount of money, or they use small amount of cryptocurrency funds by sending them to different accounts, or sending small amounts to the same account over and over again until they get the amount that they want to be withdrawn. And there were no withdrawals in the BVI. So some individuals, they will accumulate small donation over time before executing a single large withdrawals. And then you also have rapid movements of funds. So you have funds move quickly between wallets to obfuscate the origin and destination. Some of the funds are transferred through multiple intermediary, basically chain hopping before they reach their final location. And the speed is used to reduce the chance of regulatory intervention before the funds are cashed out or converted. Use of money service business. So some terrorist financiers use unregulated or loosely regulated MSBs to cash out virtual assets. So these money service business, they operate in jurisdiction with weak AML or CFT controls, making it easier to convert cryptocurrency to fiat. Many money service business offer cash withdrawals with minimal identity verification. In other words, they bypass KYC. Use of high risk exchanges. So terrorist financiers use cryptocurrency exchange in jurisdiction with weak AML regulation to convert and transfer funds. So some offshore exchanges, they do not require KYC verification, making them attractive for illicit activities. So many of these platforms lack transaction monitoring, making funds tracing difficult. Peer-to-peer, which most people know it as P2P trading. So many illicit actors avoid central exchange by trading cryptocurrency directly with individuals through a P2P platform. So a P2P transaction, they are able to bypass traditional banking and regulated financial systems. So funds are often sent to buyers in return for cash, prepaid card, or other assets. So it's like a trade basically. And then you have cluster address. Cluster address refers to basically groups of wallet addresses that are controlled by the same entity. Some terrorist group use multiple linked wallet to distribute and launder funds while reducing exposure. So these wallets they're basically used to break up transaction and obscure financial trails. So methodology used to identify terrorist financing in VA report. So in reviewing suspicious transaction report, we are able to examine reports, reported transaction to identify unusual activities such as rapid high value transfer or frequently small payments. And we also check SARS that mention any users attempt to convert virtual asset into fiat currency through an unregistered platform. We also looked at for transactions involving high-risk jurisdiction or known illicit financial network. So use of technology and platform. The FIA leverage uses a platform, I think it's blockchain analysis. It's a tool that is able to trace suspicious wallet activities. These tools are able to identify wallet addresses linked to known financial crimes, including terrorist financing. The technology, it also helps visualize funds movement across different virtual asset platform, and it helps us in the detection of money laundering tactics. Identifying entities. So identifying entities and individuals linked to suspicious transaction. So usually we review SARS that mention exchanges, that refers to exchanges, businesses, or individual who are frequently involved in unusual transaction. We also check to see if the same entity appears in multiple reports, signaling potential risk. We also cross-reference entities or individuals with global financial watch lists and law enforcement alert. So as a concern, recognizing transaction patterns in SARS, we tend to look for structured transactions such as multiple small transfers, leading to significant withdrawals, identifying wallet addresses that interact with multiple VASP across different jurisdictions. And we also check for transactions that appear to basically be going in a cycle, meaning funds move between wallets in repeated loops before it is being withdrawn. As it concerns behavioral and demographic profiling, after analyzing suspicious activities report, we usually that are submitted by the virtual asset service provider, the financial investigation agency usually identify whether or not there's a notable trend among individuals involved in suspicious transactions related to terrorist financing in virtual assets. So the key demographic observation while observing these SARS, we would have noted that there are majority of the individuals, they are young adults. We also noted that the significant number of these individuals flagged in the SAR, they fall within like young adult age group, probably late teens to early 30s. This aligned with global trend where terrorist organization targets younger recruits who they're often more tech savvy, for a better word, and they are willing to engage in online financial transactions. So these individuals frequently use social media, encrypted messaging app, and like decentralized financial platforms to conduct transactions. Along with these individuals and companies, we'd have noted that a large percentage of the individuals and companies, they're located in the Middle East, particularly in region with known terrorism financing risk or active extremist network. So many of these locations are under increased global scrutiny for financial crime and terrorist related activities. So geographic jurisdiction, risk base. So in the SAR, we'd have also noticed that many of the transactions involving high-risk countries are sanctioned region. They're able to use blockchain analytics to map we were able to use blockchain analytics to map transaction flow and identify if funds end up in jurisdiction known for terrorist financing. So we were able to use this to determine transactions, that bypass regulated financial institution to evade scrutiny. And just to get further into that, so you can have a better understanding. This phrase refers to analyzing whether suspicious financial transactions are deliberately avoiding traditional banks, regulated cryptocurrency exchange, and other official monitoring financial institution to escape this detection by authority. So, and then we also, having looked at these SARs, we ensure that they're in compliance with certain regulations. So we review SARs that indicated VASP or exchange failing to. We basically ensure that the reporting entity is compliant with the necessary regulation that were provided to guide them. So in reviewing SARs that indicate VASP or exchange failing to follow KYC compliance, we also check reports of transaction exceeding certain risk threshold without proper verification. We assess whether the VASP are compliant with the FATF travel rules, which is required, and also integrated approach. After reviewing the file, analyzing the file, we then share the intelligence with the respective global FIUs or regulators or law enforcement. So if SARS analysts suggest ongoing financial crime, the case may be referred for further investigation. So case study, Hezbollah use of terrorist financing. So Hezbollah, it's basically a Lebanese-based militant and political organization. It has been designated as a terrorist group by multiple countries due to its involvement in global illicit financial activities. So the group, they're able to raise, move, and launder funds through a complex international network. They utilize both legitimate businesses and illegal operations to finance their activities. So how Hezbollah, hope I'm pronouncing their name correctly, how the fund how funds how the operation works. So they basically they use, we would have outlined numerous trends, techniques, and methodology, and they also use all of which was outlined. So trade-based money laundering, this organization, they use international trade-based network to launder money, often through falsified invoices or over under invoicing techniques. So the group they also operate front companies in various industry, where gold, diamond, cars, construction, etc. And they use that to basically disguise illicit movements. So if they have, for instance, they have some money and they want to move the money, they don't necessarily have to move the money itself. They can also trade the money for gold and have the gold move across the different borders using trade-based money laundering. Drug trafficking, they're also be linked to large scale of drug trafficking operation in Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East. So the group, they're able to launder drug proceeds through international business and money services. They also abuse non-profit organization whereas they're able to divert funds from humanitarian aids and donation to finance its militant activities. They also use virtual assets and cryptocurrency. They adopt cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Tether as to move funds internationally by bypassing traditional financial systems. So crypto donations are often collected through social media campaign and encrypted messages. So in regards to this terrorist group, although Hezbollah primarily financial operations span the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa, they are known to use offshore financial structure and trade-based laundering, which makes the BVI vulnerable to potential exploitation. So the BVI is a major financial center, home to thousands of registered companies that engage in international trade. So there can also be like an offshore trust in the BVI that could be used to launder Hezbollah illicit funds and obscure financial transaction. In regards to trade-based money laundering involving BVI registered companies could facilitate the movement of Hezbollah-linked funds across border. The growing use of virtual currencies or virtual asset, Tether, Bitcoin, in terrorist financing poses a risk to BVI-based virtual assets providers. So having highlighted that the BVI is a major offshore financial center, if there's any failure to effectively combat terrorist financing risk, this could lead to severe economic, legal, and reputational consequences. So if the jurisdiction is perceived as a vulnerable, or should I say, if it is perceived as vulnerable to financial crime, including TF, it could face international sanctions, loss of investors' confidence, and stricter regulatory scrutiny. So just to dive a little deeper into that, let's just look at some of the risks. So reputational damage. This means that the BVI reputation as a trusted financial center could be significantly harmed if it is associated with terrorist financing risk. So international organizations, financial institutions, and investors may view the jurisdiction as a high risk. And if there's negative media coverage, this could further damage the British Virgin Islands credibility in the global financial sector. A regulatory sanction, if the BVI does not effectively address TF risk, it could face international regulatory action. So the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, may place the BVI on its gray list or blacklist, indicating deficiencies in anti-money laundering and counterterrorism measures. So this could result in strict regulatory oversight from global financial institutions and restriction on international banking access. Legal consequences, the BVI could face legal actions and international investigations if entities operating within the jurisdiction, are found to be facilitating terrorist financing. So this will require stricter regulatory requirements, and financial penalties could be imposed on the BVI-based businesses. So And also financial institutions may be forced to enhance compliance measures, increasing operational costs, and also loss of investors' confidence. So foreign businesses and investors may move their funds elsewhere if they perceive the BVI as a risk jurisdiction for financial transaction. The BVI economy, which relies heavily on financial services, could also suffer if global investors shift their operation to a more secure jurisdiction. So financial institutions may reduce their exposure to the BVI, and this may also limit our economy. So countermeasures and strategies to protect the BVI financial sector from terrorist financing risk. A comprehensive strategy must be implemented. This involves strengthening regulation, leveraging technology, enhancing international cooperation, and increasing private sector engagement. So by adopting these countermeasures, the BVI can reinforce its AML or CFT framework as to maintain investors' confidence and comply with global financial standard. So in order, as it regards to regulatory measures, the BVI would need to enhance its AML slash CFT laws to close gaps that could be exploited for TF, implement stricter due diligence and KYC or EDD requirements for financial institution and virtual asset service provider. They should also ensure compliance with FATF recommendation as to avoid any categorized, or should I say, they should to avoid being categorized, sorry, as a high risk jurisdiction. And for information purpose, I must inform you that some of these actions that I will be talking about in regards to countermeasures and strategies, I just want to inform you that some of these actions have already set into motion. So we have started to make the necessary adjustments. As it regards to leveraging technology for enhanced monitoring, we will continue to utilize and perhaps update our system or advise others to update their system as it regards to utilizing blockchain analytical tools as to trace virtual assets transaction linked to suspicious activities. And in regards to strengthening international cooperation, we like to collaborate with global financial investigation intelligence unit as to exchange intelligence on TF risk, which is something that we have already started as stated. And also we are trying our best, and one of the things is to ensure that our AML slash CFT standards are aligned with the international standard set by Financial Action Task Force. In regards to private sector involvement, one of the key things that we are trying to do, and we think it's in the interest of everyone, is to encourage financial institutions such as VASP, corporate service providers, to strengthen their AML slash CFT compliance policy, providing regular training for their employees as they deem fit. Also enhancing KYC or EDD protocols in regards to screening high-risk clients and prevent illicit activities. So in regards to the BVI legislative framework against terrorist financing, the British Virgin Islands has established a robust legislative framework to combat terrorist financing and money laundering. These laws and regulation aligns with the international AML/CFT standard. This is to ensure that the jurisdiction remain compliant with FATF recommendation. So we were looking at terrorism, United Nations measures, overseas territories order 2001, and as we know that we are an overseas territory for the UK, and that legislation it was basically implemented as to UN Security Council resolution in regards to countering terrorism and allowing the freezing of assets belonging to individuals or entity associated with terrorism. Anti-terrorism, financial and other measures, overseas territory order 2002. So this legislation came into play as to strengthen sanction enforcement against individual and organization linked to terrorism. It also empower law enforcement and financial institution to detect and report suspicious transaction and establish measures to prevent business from being used as basically a vehicle for terrorist financing. The AML/CFT Code of Practice 2008. It provides guidelines for financial institution, virtual asset providers, and businesses on implementing anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing measures. It also requires customer due diligence, CDD, enhanced due diligence, EDD, and know your customer, KYC procedure. It also mandates ongoing monitoring of high-risk transaction and reporting of suspicious activity to the Financial Investigation Agency. In regards to Counterterrorism Act 2021, this expands the BVI legal framework to combat terrorism and terrorist financing. So it grants law enforcement agency greater power to investigate, freeze, and confiscate terrorist-related assets. It also criminalize the provision of financial service to individuals or group involved in terrorism. It strengthens information sharing between local and international authority to disrupt terrorist network. And as it concerns Financial Investigation Agency Act, this empower the FIA to analyze activities, suspicious activity report, and collaborate with global financial intelligence unit, FIUs, and take enforcement action. Also, it enhances financial transparency by ensuring businesses and financial institutions comply with the AML/CFT regulation. So you will understand where we get our powers from as to how we can do certain things as to combat terrorist financing. So as we wrap it up, I just wanted to reiterate what was said before. So our intention is to provide understanding and awareness and enhance your knowledge in regards to the different typologies, trends, and mechanism that we would have identified. And once we have identified, we can assist the BVI in remaining committed to combating terrorist financing and strengthening its financial security through robust regulations, advanced monitoring, international cooperation, and provide private sectors, or should I say, engage more with private sectors as to assist them in providing the necessary information that is needed for this fight. Um, as financial crime tactics evolve, the BVI must continuously enhance its AML slash CFT measures in order to leverage cutting edge technology and foster global partnership to stay ahead of emerging risks. So by maintaining strict compliance with international standards, the BVI can safeguard its financial integrity, preserve its investors' confidence, and uphold its reputation as a trusted global financial center. Thank you. So this is the end of my presentation, and I hope the information that I imparted, you will be able to understand it and be able to use it, as I stated, in our fight against financial crime. This I want to believe that this presentation will be uploaded on the Financial Investigation Agency website and also their YouTube platform. So you can always go there to review. And if there's any question, you can always send us an email and we'll get right back to you. Thank you for your patience, and we'll now end the presentation here.